Mark Skaar on the Skaar Kaard on 103.7 The Fox. Proud to welcome in Dan Lorenzo from Cassius King. Dan,
hey Mark,
welcome.
How you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, and I'm happy to hear that you go back a long way in my musical career. I appreciate that.
Yes, sir. We go back to a band called Non-Fiction, who have a lot in common musically with Cassius King. And for people that like bands like Black Sabbath, you're going to love Cassius King. So congratulations on this Field Trip album.
Thank you so much. And I agree with you. When people ask me what it sounds like after Hades and I started Non-Fiction, I kind of feel like I really found my sound, Mark, and I just released 4 records with a band called Vessel of Light over the last 5 years. So people ask me what it sounds like. It sounds, of course, like Black Sabbath. I mean, my singer, Nathan from Vessel of Light, he might be influenced by Alice in Chains or Typo Negative. But Jason McMaster, who's the singer for Cassius King, he had a great analogy where he said it sounds kind of like Ronnie James Dio, Black Sabbath. That's what Cassius King pretty much sounds like, I think.
Which is my favorite era of Sabbath.
Yeah, me too, probably. I mean, I love all the riffs, the old riffs, but of course, Dio was an amazing vocalist, and certainly I think people would agree, even if they don't like him as much, technically he was the best singer Sabbath had, certainly better than Ozzy technically.
No question. So, Cassius King, the name, you had a solo record by that name. Where did it come from?
My Nana, which is a grandmother, my Italian grandmother, her first husband died, and her second husband, when I was really poor and I was a struggling musician, when I was in Non-Fiction and touring and I had no money, he would always say to me, Danny, cash is king. Cash is king, meaning, that was his god was money. So I turned Cash is King into Cassius King. And in 2003, I released a solo album, which, sounds like me, with me singing, which isn't, I'm certainly not a singer, but, I grew up listening to, Kiss, and I can sound a little bit like Gene Simmons, people tell me. But I called my first solo album Cassius King, and whenever I would record cover songs, whether Rob Dukes was on vocals or Jason McMahon, or whoever, I would call it Cassius King. And I just printed up CDs for my friends, really, just a few hundred CDs. It was just like a little fun thing. We'd even charge for them. But then after the 4 Vessel of Light albums, I had some music left over, and Jason McMaster and I said, we should finally do an album together. And I said, hey, can we call the band Cassius King? And he said, it works for me. So there we go.
Right, exactly. And of course, there's kind of a weird parallel because you've worked for a long time with a gentleman named Alan Tecchio, who of course succeeded Jason McMaster in a prog metal band called Watchtower. So it's all kind of full circle.
Yeah, it's kind of the same crowd, and it's funny, I live in New Jersey. My bass player lives in New York City. My drummer, Ron Lipnicki, he was in Overkill for 10 years. He lives the closest to me, but both Nathan Opposition, who was my singer for Vessel of Light, he just moved to Austin, and Jason McMaster is a lifelong Texas guy. And now I have 2 singers who live in Austin, Texas. But yeah, comes full circle, and a lot of us know each other.
Talking with Dan Lorenzo about Cassius King Field Trip. So you mentioned you had these tracks left over, and there's 10 of them. Tell me, working in a pandemic and working with a singer long distance, how all that happened.
Well, I had about maybe a dozen songs, or maybe even 13 songs written for the last Vessel of Light album, which was called Last Ride. It's probably my favorite album I've ever released. But I just keep writing, and then during the pandemic, I was home. My wife and I were stuck indoors, so I just kept writing. And before you knew it, I had 18 songs to music. The way I record is all the guitars go first to a click track. This is the way I've been doing it for the last 4 or 5 albums of my life. And the singer and the drummer, the bass player, they come in after me. So I just keep writing, and I'm always about 1 album ahead. Even though Cassius King Field Trip is brand new, I've already recorded 10 songs for the next record. So the pandemic was, obviously horrible for mankind, but it was a good time to stay indoors and write some, more material.
So then, how did you've worked with Jason on the covers, and I'll get to that in a minute. But how did you guys first cross paths?
Probably through Alan, I guess.
Okay.
I wasn't a fan of Watchtower, honestly, but Jason has a band called Broken Teeth, and they had a song called Stick It In, and when I heard that, I'm like, man, I got to do something with this guy. This guy's got a great voice. We realized we both had the same love of the old school 70s music like Kiss, Aerosmith, Bon Scott, AC/DC. Jason and I both love that kind of stuff, as well as Ron and Jimmy. So it was just kind of like a natural thing that when I had some time, I said, I was thinking to myself, why would I want to release another Vessel of Light album album. As much as I love Nathan Opposition's voice, we couldn't do any shows because of the pandemic. So Jason had time, and it's just through the miracle of science or whatever you want to call it. He's never met my bass player and drummer, Jimmy or Ron. I've met Jason, but Jimmy and Ron have never met him, but it's okay because everything's done. Jason sings out of his house, and then he just sends the files to my guy in New York.
Talking with Dan Lorenzo about Cassius King Field Trip, the debut album out now, and you did a video for Cleopatra's Needle. Correct,
yeah. That guy, Jason, his name is Jason, Jason Stewart. He's been making the last few Vessel of Light videos, and he just did, like you said, the video for Cleopatra's Needle, which is one of my favorite songs on the album, although I got to tell you, Mark, I know you said you like Below the Stones best. I think I like every song as much as the next one, pretty much. I don't think there's any clunkers. Maybe that's my opinion, but it's basically a lyric video, and Jason McMaster will tell you it's not really particularly about Jack the Ripper. It kind of is more about the Cleopatra's Needle and what happened when those monoliths were delivered to New York and London.
Interesting. I know, reading the press release, that he wrote a majority of the record lyrically, but there was some help from the other guys.
Yeah, Jimmy Shulman. Jimmy's been my bass player in Hades, and he's been with me for Vessel of Light's last two albums, and now Cassius King. And Jimmy's always writing down lyrics. And when I asked Jason if he had any problems, like coming up with melody, line, and lyrics, I was hoping Jason McMaster would tell me he had needed some help with melody lines, because I love writing melody lines. But he said, no. He's like, what I really need help with maybe is some lyrics. So I told that to Jimmy Shulman, and he jumped right on it and started sending Jason lyrics. And Jason used a lot of them in the song King of Lies, Cleopatra's Needle, I Move with the Moon. So Jimmy Shulman has writing credit on at least 3 or 4 songs on Cassius King Field Trip.
We're talking to Dan Lorenzo about Cassius King Field Trip. Now, if you buy the CD, you'll get 2 covers tacked on the end. The first of all, one of my favorite bands of all time, Cheap Trick, originally from In Color, a track called Big Eyes.
That is correct. Yeah, there's a Led Zeppelin cover and a Cheap Trick cover. When you said one of your favorite bands of all time, I thought you were going to go with the obvious Led Zeppelin. But yeah, for people who don't know the first few Cheap Trick records, my God, they were pretty amazing, right?
Yes.
And Mark, I'm sure you've seen them live?
Many times.
Okay, yeah, me as well. I thought they were probably even better live, really always fun live. A lot of my favorite bands don't play the songs I want them to play live, but Cheap Trick, it's always a good time. I mean, those guys have been doing it for so long, nothing but respect for them. And yeah, Cassius King, the CD on Nomad Eel actually has 2 bonus tracks, like you said, that aren't available anywhere else digitally. So Nomad Eel has the CDs with the 2 bonus tracks.
That's right. Out on the Tiles is the Led Zeppelin track.
Correct.
And I assume that's a favorite?
Oh, yeah. I always love that riff, and that's actually me on bass and guitar, because Jimmy didn't get up to the studio that day, but it came about really spontaneously. Ron was recording drum parts, and we were kind of getting sounds for him, and I had the producer, J-Rod, just say, hey, record it, and we did a little off-the-cuff version of Out on the Tiles. There's even one mistake at the very beginning of it where we play the intro twice, but I love it, and then I asked Jason, of course, to sing on it, so we have the bonus track, like I said, on Nomad Eel Records. Something just dawned on me.
Here's an idea for the next record.
Okay.
How about a non-fiction cover?
Interesting, Mark. Vessel of Light, when we first started playing live, we did Peaked.
Okay.
By Nonfiction. But I have so many songs, I don't know if I need to start going back into the past yet, but it's not a bad idea, Mark, because there are people who, when we play that song live, they really dug it, so it's possible.
3 records from Nonfiction for the uninitiated. Let's just talk a little bit about that, because if you like Cassius King, you will like Nonfiction.
Yeah, and there's a Spanish label re-releasing everything on vinyl this year, so our first album... our first album with Alan was Preface. We had a little green CD, we call it, EP out,
right,
with Dan Nastasi on vocals, who was in a band called Doggy Dog and Mucky Pup. But with Alan and Kevin and Mike Christie, we did Preface. In the Know was our big hit record, is on MTV. Remember when MTV used to play videos?
Sure.
And we toured America with Overkill, and then we went on tour in Europe with Overkill and Savatage. It was actually Chris from Savage's last European tour. He and I shared a tour bus and equipment, so it was a really special memory. But yeah, nonfiction was, when I was in nonfiction, I didn't have a day job. I mean, I was really, really poor, but we toured the world and we had a lot of fun. And nonfiction in the know, to me, is still a classic record, and I get people who tell me it's one of their favorite records of all time, actually.
Was there a video for Ready to Live?
Reason to Live.
Reason to Live, yes.
Yep, it's on YouTube now. Pulled right off the when MTV played it. But yeah, and that might have been a mistake. I remember we paid, or I should say, IRS Records paid $17,000 for the video, and maybe they should have gone with the title track, Nonfiction in the Know, because I remember a friend at the time saying, "Don't give people too many things to think about. Just say Nonfiction in the Know. The video is in the Know by Nonfiction." But whatever we did, and we had a lot of fun. And there's some old videos of us playing in Michigan and all over the world that are popping up on YouTube, and I watch them and have a nice big smile on my face when I watch them.
Or with Dan Lorenzo. And you mentioned Vessel of Light many times. 4 records and an EP, right?
Well, really 3 full lengths and an EP, I guess. So we basically did 4 records in 3 years, and as soon as we recorded the EP, I got us to deal with an Italian label called Argonauta. But Vessel of Light, yeah, to me that's a real special band, and we did about a dozen shows before the pandemic shut everything down. And then my singer Nathan from Vessel of Light, he moved from Cleveland to Austin, Texas. So we haven't done anything yet, but we definitely would like to do some more Vessel of Light in the future, and it feels like I'm writing enough music that that's not going to be a problem. But yeah, for anybody who likes maybe clean vocals, or actually Nathan does some screaming. Some people said in some songs he sounds like Rob Zombie, but Vessel of Light, Son of Man is our big single on Spotify and YouTube, and I'm pretty obsessed with Vessel of Light. I dump a lot of my own money into promotion because I'm so into the band. But right now, we're focusing on Cassius King Field Trip, but a Vessel of Light is very near and dear to my heart.
Dan, thank you for your time. Good luck with Cassius King going forward. I can't wait to see what's next.
I really appreciate it, Mark. Have a great day.
It's Dan Lorenzo, Cassius King Field Trip, out now for Dan Lorenzo. I'm Mark Skaar on the Skaar Kaard on 103.7 The Fox.